Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Quantum Conversations. We are going to talk about vitamin D today. Very controversial topic, right, Carrie?
No, I try to avoid controversy, Sarah, but I do think we need to get some just maybe a different viewpoint is what I'm going to call it, like a more, maybe an open-minded like assessment of vitamin D and why maybe supplementation isn't in your best interest.
Agree. Yeah. And that's one that I run up against on social media quite a bit when I do talk about vitamin D. And there's a lot of data that talks about the importance of it and how it really is crucial for your immune system, is crucial for so many different processes in your body. But can a supplement actually replace what we're supposed to be getting from the sun, right?
Yes, it's a good question. And I think what we have to talk about first is I truly believe that vitamin D was misnamed. It's a psychosteroid hormone, so it acts more like a hormone in the body. And that being said, while we supplement with D, it's one form. And when we make it via sunlight on our skin, it actually makes a dozen metabolites. And there's a couple that I want to highlight today. One specifically that I want to highlight today. And so I think it's important to recognize that it's like it's kind of similar to sunlight making a full spectrum version of vitamin D as opposed to an isolated nutrient, if you will. And I always say full spectrum and natural, if at all possible.
Yeah, I agree. And another thing that we'll talk about, I'm sure, in this episode, because when we start talking about this, people freak out and they're like, well, what do I do during the winter when there is no sunshine? Like, am I supposed to just not get any vitamin D in the winter? Like, and that's when we get sick the most and And so I definitely think we need to address that.
Yeah, sure. And I think that's where melatonin, and not supplementing, but melatonin comes into play. And that's also where some of the newer research, listen, I go through the patent, right? I read research, but I look for patents, like who's applying for patents. And there is someone who applied for a patent on a specific metabolite of vitamin D that actually can get activated into pre-vitamin D and can become D3 in lower light environments. So that's something I'm excited to share about today.
Interesting. Okay. All right. Well, let's open it up. Where do we start with this whole topic?
Okay. Well, number one, vitamin D or hormone D or psychosteroid hormone D, however you want to refer to it as. I'm just going to call it vitamin D because it's
namesake,
right? It is made in the skin, right, out of cholesterol. So cholesterol is a precursor to vitamin D. And when a certain wavelength range of light strikes the skin, specifically ultraviolet B light, then that provides enough energy. It's a high enough energy or intensity wavelength of light to convert cholesterol into ultimately pre-vitamin D, which can then become vitamin D3. It's the pathway that we've been basically designed to get the majority of our D from. And that's I think where I think it's just a broad place to start, is like that is where we were designed to synthesize vitamin D. And while some food sources have D inside of them, it is supplemental compared to what we can make. We can make 100,000 IU or more with just a pretty normal sunlight exposure, an hour or two outside on a summer afternoon, as opposed to, we're looking at cod liver oil contains nowhere near that amount.
Yeah. And then there's a whole issue with cod liver oil. It's out of its position, correct?
Yeah, exactly. Like I have clients who, if they feel like they want to support vitamin D levels, I always direct people to the whole food source. So why not just eat the cod liver?
Eat it.
Right?
Yeah.
Which is nasty in my opinion, but why not just eat the cod liver? Or why not make sure you are consuming just a liver on a regular basis? And it doesn't have to be every other day, every week even, right?
Right.
It also begs the question of, are we even when someone says they've got low vitamin D, Sarah, are we even actually getting accurate information with that as well? Which means, people are kind of up in arms about, no, low vitamin D is associated with every diagnosed disease possible, and my vitamin D is low. I think that there's a little bit of education that we have to provide there in terms of the testing, and also the fact that the level of vitamin D that was considered low actually has changed significantly over the course of the past couple of decades.
Yeah. What was considered low then, and how is it different now?
Yeah, Michael Hollick, I believe, is the name of the researcher, and he did rightfully, I think, by testing a version of vitamin D in the blood, a less active, a storage form of vitamin D in the blood called 25-OHD. Mm-hmm. He did find that his chronically ill patients were low. Mm-hmm. And he even found that people who even had above what was normal at the time, which was 12, I believe, was the cutoff at 12. That point.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
He even found that even people above that still appeared to have a chronic illness, more likely to have chronic illness. And I want to say there wasn't a heck of a lot, at least I haven't read a heck of a lot of research that went into solidifying this number, but he raised the threshold to 32. Mm-hmm. It's actually, I think, got some wiggle room as well. I think even some people have increased it a little bit as well.
They have.
To say that that's the threshold. If your vitamin D is 32, then that's when you're sufficient in D. And this opens up a whole can of worms of, number one, we're testing the storage form, one metabolite of D.
Right.
And in the same way, it's hard to draw conclusions on thyroid health based on just your TSH.
Exactly.
That we're drawing a lot of conclusions about one's vitamin D status based on one number. And the other thing is, and this is just a coincidence, I don't think Michael Hollick has bad intentions, but he also then started a vitamin D supplement company, and now is, because recognizing that, oh gosh, now I'm low, that's $1 billion a year industry.
Oh yeah.
Right, for vitamin D supplementation. So there is potentially an unbeknownst to him, a financial bias or a financial sway to continue to promote this idea that most people are low in this one particular form of D.
Exactly. So the other form is 125, correct? That one is typically high if your other 025 is low. Is that what you usually see?
It's a pattern I typically see. Now, I can't order blood work as a clinician, so I typically am just looking at blood work orders from other clinicians that my clients bring to me.
No one ever orders that one.
And no one ever orders it. I see it maybe a half a dozen times a year. So I'm not drawing from a big sample here, but typically when someone comes to me with an inflammatory condition, they have low storage D, that 25D, and elevated active D, 125D. Which to me doesn't indicate that there's a vitamin D deficiency. It indicates to me that there's an active inflammatory condition that it's being converted to, and the body is utilizing the active form to help to calm the excessive inflammation. Because D is a steroid hormone. Yes. And the same reason why certain people get like, what is it? It's not pregnenolone, prednisone. Prednisone, right, is a steroid hormone that can be really therapeutic in a short dose, in a small dose for a short window of time to lower inflammation. But we all know what happens when someone is on prednisone long term. It can be very dysregulated. Yeah. So it's similar to this with my take on D, and while I'm actually okay with clients doing a short-term therapeutic supplementation if there is excessive inflammation going on, I don't want them on 10,000 IU of supplemental D3 every single day for the rest of their life. No. And the same reason I don't want them on prednisone every single day for the rest of their life.
Yeah, I agree with that. If somebody's really, really sick, they're dealing with a lot of infections, a lot of inflammation, short term, right? And I've even seen people do it when they get COVID or they get really, really sick just during that time, kind of like with melatonin, which maybe we should do a whole episode on melatonin too. I'm gonna make a note of that because
that's next time.
That's another one of my favorite topics.
Yeah, it's a good topic.
But if you take it long term, and I did an episode with Jim Stevenson Jr. on my podcast. I know you've talked with Jim. Jim is like done, I think, the most research on this topic of anybody that I've ever met.
What's cool about Jim is he's a citizen scientist. He's got no stake in this. He just wants to know. He legitimately just wants to know.
Right.
And so he's an interesting person to interact with because it's not like he's got a stake in it one way or the other.
Zero. I think it was his wife that had major, major health problems after long-term vitamin D supplementation. And that is what, like all of us that kind of get into different things with our health, it's our kids or our spouses or even ourselves, our loved ones that have these health crises. And then we're like, wait a second, I need to learn more about this. So I think it was his wife that had I don't want to misquote. I think it was some sort of a cancer or something, but she was doing high dose vitamin D per her doctor because she was low, and it ended up creating a host of other issues for her with her thyroid, calcification issues. And so I don't think people know the risks of doing this long-term supplementation. So maybe we can talk a little bit about that, just bridge that in there.
Well, sure. And and what we're Sarah and I are talking about doesn't have to do with D when it's being made from sunlight, because
Right.
the body actually you can't overdo it that way. The body actually will vary it and store it and change its type into a different metabolite to balance it all out.
Yep.
But when you're just given high doses of D3 day in and day out, what it can do is it can compete with thyroid hormone receptor function. It can change, it can, like you said, dysregulate calcium metabolism. It has the potential to change vitamin A status or the ratio of vitamin D to vitamin A. Everything works synergistically.
Yeah, it's vitamin A, D, E, and K. Those are the four fat solubles.
The fat ones work really, really synergistically together, right?
Yep. And a lot of people will say, I'm taking D, but I'm also taking a K too. So I'm okay, right? And I'm like,
well, you're okay potentially in maintaining calcium in your bones as opposed to your soft tissues. Yeah, you might be okay with that. But what about things like thyroid hormone receptor competition, right? Like, so, you know, and there's also people who are vitamin A deficient.
Exactly. Most people are, I think.
Which, again, we're talking about the animal-based form of A. Most people are. And vitamin A and vitamin D need to be together to actually even get the downstream effect of vitamin D at that vitamin D receptor site. So a lot of things go into this. And I think, just like a lot of things, it just gets overly simplified, and the potential, I don't know, dangers might be the wrong word, but the potential dysregulation that can happen from it, it's just kind of poo-poo. Like, oh, it's not a big deal. Everyone's low. We need to supplement. Everyone
needs to take a supplement. Yeah. And like you said, everyone has thyroid issues these days, you know? So it's like, how much of that is, I mean, I don't know. There's so many things I think that are causing thyroid issues these days.
That's a whole other talk. Right?
Yeah, that's a completely other topic, but it could be contributing. Everyone just kind of doing the vitamin D because we're being told this is going to help your immune system. This is going to help you get through, you know, cold and flu season, blah, blah, blah. And yeah. And it's funny. I measured my vitamin D the summer before I got pregnant. I was like crazy in the sun, tanning every day. And it got to 100. And I used this at-home lab test, and they called me and they were like, stop supplementing. And I'm like, I'm actually not supplementing. And they're like, get out of the sun. They were like really, really, really worried and concerned. I'm like, if it was from supplementation and it was over 100, I would be worried. But I've literally just been in the sun like a lot this year. I think it was like at the end of September, and I had just been in the sun a ton. I was like, oh, I'm not worried about it, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. The body has a way to handle that.
Right. Exactly.
Differently. The other thing about that too, that you highlight, is that there are periods where we're designed to have elevated vitamin D levels.
Yes.
Potentially in the blood, but also other parts of the body. There's a lot of places vitamin D can get stored. Mm-hmm. And then there's a period when we're not going to be able to make it if we live above a certain latitude.
Winter.
And so, right. Like, I can't physically make it there might be a loophole on this, but I'll talk about that later. But typically, you're not going to be able to make it in anywhere near the same extent that you could in the middle of summer, when there's plentiful UVB light and the UV index is high enough.
Yes.
And so that's a seasonal thing too, where it's like, okay, maybe vitamin D is actually helping us to understand seasonality.
Yes.
And giving us tons of high dose vitamin D all winter long actually can create a confusing circadian signal.
Exactly. Yeah, that's the thing, because we always talk about melatonin is kind of the hormone of winter, and vitamin D is kind of the hormone of summer. And I can't remember, I just found a paper the other night from the scientist who is basically talking about that. She wrote a whole paper on it, a research paper about how both of them, you're supposed to make a lot more D in the summer and then a lot more melatonin in the winter for your immune system, for your overall health and your bodily functions. And I don't think that people are just like, oh, where can I buy the supplement? And it's like, no, but your body, there's so much more darkness in the winter time that your body has the ability to make it. If you wear your blue blockers, if you are blocking artificial light at night, if you're going to bed early when the sun's there's so many things we can do to support that, just like we can do to support vitamin D synthesis in the summer. Right.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And that really, I would love to read that paper, because that's totally been my clinical experience. Is we're designed to optimize and elevated melatonin levels in the winter for therapeutic healing purposes. And we're designed to optimize and elevate vitamin D through skin synthesis in the summer for therapeutic purposes. And when those work in balance, it's a beautiful thing, right? Like you've got one support strategy in the summer, one support strategy in the winter. And we seesaw like that. And it works really, really well. Melatonin never gets tested, right? Serum melatonin never gets tested, but I guarantee, and serum actually probably isn't the best measurement. Let's say salivary melatonin.
Yeah, I was going to say salivary. Yeah.
But I would imagine, as probably you would, that if the majority of people had their salivary melatonin tested at 9:00 at night, it would be low across the board. And then we'd have another crisis. Oh no, there's an epidemic of low melatonin. We have to start supplementing melatonin. And it's all related to light exposure, right? It's related to light exposure, right? And also potentially then might be even higher at 9 p.m. in the winter than it would be 9 p.m. in the middle of the summer. Like it should be for sure. And there's just a different way. I hope we're conveying that you can look at these things that make sense to me. And just might inform you in terms of whether or not you're going to want to supplement.
Right. And then things like in the winter, again, like melatonin production, cold, darkness, all of those things can actually, and scarcity, like not being afraid of being a little bit more keto in the winter. Those things can actually help to preserve your vitamin D stores, doing a little bit less cortisol inducing activities like high intensity interval training. That's more appropriate for, like, let's say summertime. Wintertime, you want to do more like walking outside or walking or just, more low key stuff, because that whole kind of cortisol expenditure that can also create an issue with your storage of vitamin D, would you say?
Well, yeah, absolutely. Because cortisol is also anti-inflammatory as well.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we have to view them more as like good, bad, but they're needed for certain situations.
Right. Cortisol is important. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And when it's off or dysregulated, that can cause a lot of problems.
Yeah. I see a lot of that online. Like, oh, I have high cortisol. I'm like, well, what time are you measuring it? Like you're supposed to have like good amount of cortisol in the morning. Yeah. Good. Yeah. But if 4 p.m., 5 p.m., 6 p.m. high cortisol, not so good, right? So it's like these hormones, they run on circadian rhythm, and that changes throughout the year also. Like it's a circannual pattern and infradian rhythm, like during the month, hormones are supposed to shift. Thyroid changes. Your thyroid is different in the summer than it is the winter, like all these things. And like, we look at things through this like insular, vitamin D is low, supplement. Oh, we start testing our melatonin. That's low, supplement, cortisol is low. Let's give them more cortisol, there's so many things that we just kind of look at things backwards instead of, maybe we should take a step back and look at our daily habits, our relationship with light in the summertime versus in the wintertime. Are we getting ourselves cold? Are we in the middle of, wintertime awake at 9:00 at night, watching Netflix, with the heat blasting, right? Like, and no blue blockers on. Like, I don't watch Netflix personally anymore. I just have lost interest, but like
I watch one show. We watch Alone, about being alone in the wilderness.
Missed that one.
That's the one show we watch as a whole family. It's a fascinating show.
Oh, that's fun. So, I mean, I don't have anything against necessarily TV watching, but if you're doing it late at night, if you're not wearing blue blockers, when you're doing it hours at a time, not necessarily a great thing. So I don't want to be a killjoy and say, don't ever do that stuff, but we have to look at how these sorts of things are going to influence our hormones, and that's what we're talking about today. Vitamin D is a hormone.
Yep. Absolutely. And no, all great things that you brought up there, Sarah. And I think that this is giving people an opportunity to just maybe reassess the fact that we're really well equipped to like make the hormones or the nutrients or the metabolites in conjunction with when we most need them, when we give the body the optimum signaling.
Exactly. And I know we'll get asked this, okay, so I'm not going to supplement with vitamin D during the winter. Can I use a tanning bed? Or what about a Sperity vitamin D lamp? Should I be using that?
The answer is you can, right? The answer is you can, but I just find it to be a circadian mismatch. Like my Sperity lamp has gone untouched, sitting right there over the course of the past 2 winters, because I find that my winter healing strategy is cold, darkness, food scarcity. I am leptin sensitive, so food scarcity and supplemental infrared, right?
Yep.
Like
Red
sauna, because that also helps to make melatonin, right? Fire, exactly. So that feels very supportive of me in the winter. I still get outside. I still set my circadian rhythm. I still go on my UVA rise walk and all the things that I think are foundational and blocking the artificial light at night. But when I started to embrace winter and the colder temperatures and the shorter days, the longer nights, and understood that that also could be healing, I don't feel the need to go ahead and get in front of that Sperity D lamp.
Yep.
I have a couple of clients who are in more northern latitude than me, even up in Canada, who swear, Minnesota, Canada, who swear by a tanning session once a week that just makes them feel good.
Yep.
Fine. Right.
Yep.
Like if you feel great doing that and you really palpably notice a difference and it supports you through winter, go for it.
Yep. Yeah. And I did it like last year. I did not do Sperity because I had a new baby, and I just was like, so the thing sat in my closet the whole winter. I was like, I have a baby, and I literally had tan lines until like February from the summer before, which I had never had before because I never really was great at tanning. But I'm like, if I have tan lines, probably I'm okay. Like, I don't know if I need to pull this thing out, but I didn't have time. But yeah, when I was pregnant and I was like, still kind of like in this mindset of like, I need vitamin D, the baby needs vitamin D. My midwife was like, you need a supplement, And I was like, nope, not doing that. Cause I just talked to Jim, I'm like, not doing that. So I did use my Sperity when I was pregnant, but I think it's important when we talk about the Sperity lamp, we talk about tanning bed. And if these are your clients, then we know that they're already doing these things, having really strong circadian rhythms, very important, and blocking artificial light at night, very important. And then using some sort of red light therapy, I think with the tanning bed or with the Sperity is also really important because
right before, I've got some clients who travel and I just say, right before you go, I want you to precondition that skin.
Yep. Yeah. Cause we never in nature would just be exposed to UVA and UVB alone or UVB alone. Cause my Sperity is just UVB. Like in nature, we would be exposed to infrared, like all these other wavelengths, not just that one. And all these studies that have been done on cancer and the sun. I mean, I haven't really found a ton of them that were just done with the sun. A lot of them were done with these narrow band UV lamps. And so that's why I'm like, I don't talk a ton about these lamps because I'm like, majority of people have really crappy circadian health and they're not blocking artificial light at night. They think blue blockers is now this whole new, this new news headline, blue blockers don't actually work. I don't know if you've seen that thing floating around.
I forget who said that. Someone said that.
It was on, I think, Dr. Gabrielle Lyon's podcast. And then it's made all these other headlines. Elliot Overton actually put a video out on his YouTube channel that was excellent. Like tearing apart these studies and actually showing like, well, it's BS. Like they were looking
good. I'd love to hear
so good at that. Yeah. It was a great little like 6-minute video that Elliot did. I was like, thank you, Elliot, for explaining this to people that yes, they do work. Well, I think they were looking at clear lenses also, which we know
of course
they're not going to work. Right.
Well, right. Absolutely not. Clear lenses don't work. At night, if you want melatonin preservation, you have to have orange.
Red. Right? Yep. Red or orange. Yep.
Orange or red. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so, and here's the thing, right? We can my pet peeve, and Sarah and I talk about this, is people who read one of my posts and they're like research source or source. And it's like, number one, this information comes from a lot, not just reading one, not one source, and then making a headline, which is what a lot of these news organizations do, right? They read one research article and make a really bold headline out of it. And number two, the majority of what we're speaking on comes from clinical experience. because you can technically design a research study to show whatever you wanted, right? If I were to design a research study to show blue blocking glasses failed, then I would make my blue blocking lenses clear. I would not say anything about not watching artificial light at night or like anything. I wouldn't talk anything about seeing morning sunlight as another means of re-emphasizing a circadian rhythmicity to the body. So you can design a research study to show whatever you want. It's what are the observations on what would happen in nature and what's happening in someone's clinical reaction or clinical response to something is what I find to be way more valuable than any research article possible. And clinically speaking, the number of people went over like literally thousands of people who now wear orange tone blue blockers at night and have said that it supports their sleep and they'll never go back. I mean, how much more do you need? Right.
Exactly. Yeah. It's like you said, they just want a headline. And that's what a lot of this vitamin D stuff is. It's a headline taken from a study. We don't understand who did the study, what it was really about, but here's a headline saying, now you need to be taking vitamin D. And yeah, I think it can be harmful for some people and not helpful and not give you the benefits that you actually would get if you go out in the sun. Right.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So yeah, that was a little bit of a segue, but I think the other thing that just from a broader perspective is it's always good to be outside.
Yes.
So why not aim for making your vitamin D through the skin?
Right.
When sunlight touches your skin, let's put it this way, when UVB light appears in your environment, all the other light frequencies have already appeared. So infrared, red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet, and ultraviolet A are already there. And then UVB appears. So if you're in that window of time and you're allowing that sunlight to strike your skin, you're not only getting the UVB, but you're getting the benefits of all of the other frequencies as well. The red light is enhancing mitochondrial water production. The infrared light is creating exclusion zone water all throughout your body. The ultraviolet A is dilating your blood vessels so that they can sun themselves and capture more sunlight because we use that as energy and information. You are synthesizing vitamin D and all of its metabolites. And that's just a handful of things, right? There's so much more beyond that as well. So to me, it's really a no-brainer. It feels so much more important to go ahead and make it in that 20 minutes of sunlight on a daily basis, as opposed to taking a pill.
I agree 100%. Yep. And then one more thing I wanted to touch on, maybe we can close out with the vitamin D rich foods, which we kind of talked about a little bit. Those are not going to be significant to increase vitamin D levels. They might be supportive in helping you kind of hang on to them, but maybe for different reasons than we are aware of, just because of how how DHA works in the body when you're getting it from an animal food source, like a salmon roe, for example, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So salmon and salmon roe, while they can be really rich in, I'm talking like 200 to 300 IU, depending on the serving, right? Which is minimal compared to what people are supplementing with these days, and extremely minimal compared to what could be made with the sunlight. And these food sources of vitamin D are also rich in DHA, which is an electron-rich fat that actually helps us assimilate more sunlight, take in more sunlight in a low light environment.
Exactly.
Which is why cold water fatty fish like salmon that live in these cold northern environments are rich in DHA. And these foods also have some of the other fat soluble vitamins as well, specifically a good balance of that vitamin A, because they all work synergistically together. And so I don't think vitamin D in food I think it's good. Like I eat plenty of salmon in the winter. I eat plenty of eggs in the winter.
Definitely.
I actually eat mushrooms in the winter still.
I was going to say mushrooms. I love mushrooms. Yeah.
I love them too. And I think what's in them as a food source is adequate to be able to support the body in a low light environment, assuming we also have elevated melatonin and we've made tons of vitamin D from sunlight exposure in the summer prior to winter. It all works together. So yeah, having a little vitamin D in food is great, but I don't find a need to supplement.
Yeah, I feel the same exact way.
Before we close though, I really quickly I want to talk about that one metabolite that I was talking about. So vitamin D, when it's made through the skin, so cholesterol actually first gets converted into D3, it's called. So a precursor to D3, which is the supplement we all think about. And that pre-D3 has the ability to interconvert. It can convert to D3, but it can also interconvert into all these metabolites. And I'm thinking it's a way of essentially preventing vitamin D toxicity of any sort, right? The body says, okay, we got enough D3, so let's go ahead and convert some to tachosterol, some to lumisterol. There's different versions of those. And tachosterol is the one that I saw the patent on. It turns out that tachosterol actually can reconvert back into pre-D3 and then which can then get converted into D3 using ultraviolet A light.
Really?
Not just UVB. And so the thought is that even in low light environments, we have a way to maintain adequate D metabolite status, but no one's getting their tachosterol blood drawn, or blood drawn for tachosterol levels to figure that out. So again, we try to outsmart nature to be like, oh, we know so much more. D is low. All these disease states have low D, supplement D, and it's that cut and dry. And really it's not. And nature knows best. We don't need to necessarily try to outsmart it.
I agree 100%. So essentially what you're saying is we could expose our bodies to UVA, which is available during the winter.
All year. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's a new thing I didn't know. I always learn from you, Carrie. So
thanks, Sarah. You can always rely on me reading a research article.
Yes, I can, because I appreciate that very much. Awesome. Well, this has been a really great episode, and I'm going to make a note so we talk about melatonin on another episode. And thank you, everybody, for listening to today's show.